Hey YouTube friends, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm sharing with you an update on my first grader. I'm going to be sharing with you some of the things that we have been enjoying throughout this year and some changes we've made to the curriculum that she's using along the way. This year we've kind of switched some things up. Nothing too drastic, but I want to share that with you. So the first thing we're going to start with is her reading. She has been doing All About Reading Level 1 and we really love this program. She's reading really well with this, and we are going at a slow pace. We're going at her pace, but we are doing everything that the curriculum asks us to do, and it's really helping her to read fluently. So it's doing its job exactly the way I had hoped it would at the beginning of the year. And I'm kind of okay with the fact that it is taking us longer. Initially, I thought it would kind of just flow a little bit differently. I didn't take into account how much reading there actually was to do in this program. So just to give you an example of what I mean is that for each lesson there are these, not always this much, forgive the little doodles here, not always this much, but there are plenty of lessons where there are a ton of new words, there are a ton of phrases, there are a ton of new sentences that she's being asked to read. And the way we do this is that we break it down. We do some sentences. When we do a lesson, we do several new words, we do a few phrases, but we do not do everything, because in addition to this there's also the lesson that's involved. And so aside from that, there's also reading in the readers. So that can be a lot, and because I don't like to frustrate her, she is a reluctant reader to begin with, we break it down into really manageable chunks for her. And so it might take us a couple of weeks to get through an entire lesson, especially if there's this much reading and then there's an activity and then we're going over our word cards and practicing those, and then we're introducing new sounds and things. So it can take quite some time. For her specifically, I just go at her pace and it's been flowing really nicely. So nothing's going to change there with All About Reading. What we also use is reading games with Ziggy. This is really great to have in addition to the All About Reading activities that they offer in the Level 1. This is just a book of fun games that you can play with the children once they've learned a concept in reading. So this is just the book. I've already cut everything out and made the folders, and I'll show you that in a second. But I just want to show you what they have in here. So once you prepare the folders, there are games that you play after not every lesson, but after a certain amount of lessons, it'll tell you when it's okay to play a certain game. The reason you play it after a certain lesson is because they've already learned it in the lesson, and now you can go ahead and play the game for fun, just to kind of solidify those new concepts. And then Ziggy travels to different places, and you have a map, and he goes to these different places, and then you play the games according to what it says here. So for example, lesson 1, you can play apples to Ziggy after lesson 1, and this is going to help them recognize vowels and consonants. And every game, it'll tell you what the purpose is. So lesson 19 is caving with Ziggy, and that's to practice phonogram and word cards. So in here, this is just a cutout that you can make and put on a folder, just so Ziggy is playing with the children. We have the puppet and she loves the puppet, so we use him and as well as the folder. So here's just an example of how to assemble the folders, and then these are the directions. You can put these in the folders themselves just to keep them handy. I prefer to keep it in the book, but it gives you the directions on how to play the game and when to play the game and things like that. And then it just tells you that for every game. And that's what I have this on. So for example, he goes to places like Washington, he goes to different countries like Africa, Australia, and then you play several different games. So for example, I have all of them here, but we haven't played all of them yet. So this is the apples for Ziggy. You just cut everything out and paste it, and you make a little pocket in a folder. And inside the pocket is where you keep all the manipulatives. Here's just an example. There's some apples, and there's consonants and vowels on these apples. And it tells you what to do and how to play the game. And then you just play it. Everything is self-sustaining in here, and that helps solidify the facts. The games are really awesome. I highly recommend getting that, especially if you have a reluctant reader. Making things into games is important for them because they may not want to read, and if it's too frustrating, it becomes scary, and they just don't want to fail, so they don't want to try. So these games just make them fun, and my daughter really likes games. So here's another one, Ziggy at the Market. There's Treasure Hunt with Ziggy, and you get some little manipulatives again. These have like little keys and colors, squares, and you play the game according to the directions and unlock the chests. This one is Ziggy Teaches School. Ziggy at the Beach. Some of these I accidentally put upside down, but it doesn't matter. Caving with Ziggy. This one actually has like an extra manipulative that I laminated. Ziggy Rounds Up Horses. Blast Off with Ziggy. Ziggy Plays with Penguins. And this is the map I was talking about. This is where you start and you just look at the map and where Ziggy is gonna go. And when they play each game, it just tells you a little bit about where they are in the world. And this is the folder of Ziggy. You, of course, can use the puppet and this, but if you don't have the puppet, you can just put this up and have Ziggy play with you. So those games are a lot of fun. I highly suggest those, especially if you have a reluctant reader like I do. They work really well. Okay, so that is reading, and we're sticking with that. We love all about reading. We're excited that they have the color editions out now, so when she moves into level 2, it's going to be really nice to get those colored readers. So I'm excited about that. The next thing that we have is math. So she's still doing Math UC Primer, and it's working out fine. What I like about this is that it really helps her to focus on her fine motor skills and her math concepts with no distractions on the page. So they have these blocks that she uses, and they're pretty tiny, but the thing that's really great about this is it helps her with her fine motor. It helps build those muscles in her hand, and it helps with hand-eye coordination. She does have a hard time with holding her pencil and putting that pressure down on her pencil that she needs for writing well, and so this kind of helps her with that as well. So she uses these, but I also have some other manipulatives that we use. These centimeter blocks are really nice because they're a lot smaller, so she has to even focus a little more to pick these up and put them in the right spaces. And then we also, of course, use the linking cubes, and these are really good. They're obviously really big, but sometimes she likes to do her math below the actual example, and I'm fine with that. She can build it that way too. So we use those manipulatives for the primer. We are going to move her into alpha, but in the meantime we started a new program as well. We are using Lessons for a Living Education, Math Lessons for a Living Education by Master Books. So she's using this. What I love about this is that there is a ton of handwriting practice for her numbers. So writing numbers is something she has a hard time with, and throughout this entire book there's a ton of practice. So you don't get a lot of that with the primer. I don't know what the alpha is like. I'm sure they probably have some practice with numbers in the alpha for Math UC, but I like that there's a ton more practice in here. And she loves the stories as well. The thing is, there's a ton more writing in here, so this is asking more of her. which is okay because it's not difficult for her to do. It's not concepts she doesn't understand. It's mostly just the writing portion of it. And I want her to practice her number writing anyway. So we just go at her pace. She really likes the stories, and it's really fun to do this together with her. So we're going to stick with this as well. So that's what's new with math. So for language arts, I actually decided to put her back into foundations, and I'll kind of explain my reasoning behind this. So originally we had a program that we were going to start at the beginning of the year, but that wasn't working out. We were using the level K from The Good and the Beautiful, and that just wasn't working. And so we just kind of shelved that, and we didn't have a language arts program for a little bit. She was doing handwriting without tears. She doesn't have a spelling program or anything, but she kind of got bored with handwriting without tears because there's only so much she can do in there, and she was kind of outgrowing her level 1, her first grade 1. So I needed to put something into play. So I decided to take this back out. If you don't already know this, I had used this with her. I stopped using it with her because it was too confusing for her, all the multi-sound phonograms that were being introduced so early. And I decided to put her into All About Reading, and that's worked beautifully for her. So no regrets there. But the reason why I decided to pick this back up, again, because I needed a language arts program that encompassed more things. And I decided to tweak this and kind of adjust it in such a way that it was adaptable to her and the way she learns. So what I did was, anytime that the program introduced multiple sounds of a phonogram, instead, if it, for example, if it was A and they were already introducing A, ah, I would just introduce A and A as the phonogram. I wouldn't introduce that third sound, because that's what was tripping her up before. It was all the sounds of, you know, of Y and I, etc. So we're only doing the first 2 sounds, the long and the short sound, and that's it. And then we're just forgetting about all the other sounds. So doing that has really helped her to continue working on her phonics and her reading, and we can do her handwriting in this program as well. So we're doing all of the phonics stuff, so the language arts, and then she's doing handwriting in here instead. So what I like about the handwriting in here is that it's requiring her to write smaller, and it's also working on her lowercase letters more. So this is really helpful. And again, anytime that it's talking about or introducing more of those sounds, we're only sticking to the first and second sounds, and that is it. So whenever those sounds come into play, I just make sure that we are in around the same place in the level 1, and that we're not teaching ahead of level 1 and All About Reading. So as long as it's not been introduced yet in level 1, I won't do it here. But if level 1's already taught it, then I will, you know, allow her to do the sheets in here. And so far that is true, and it's been working out fine. So that is that, and I have my book. I've already had this program, so I didn't have to pay extra for it. I never sold it because I didn't know if I was going to use it with my son. I ended up just taking it off the shelf and using it for her. So we're going to stick with that and see how it goes for the rest of the year. I do have something that I plan on using for her for next year, and I'll make another video once this year wraps up and just kind of share all of the new things that we are going to be doing for next year. Okay, so that was language arts. Oh, for math, I forgot to share with you that we're also reading a ton of these math start books. We use level 1, and she's on to level 2 now too, but these are the ones I have out right now. Everybody Counts, we have Double the Ducks, and Missing Mittens. My son also does these as well. So level 1 is for 4 and up, and then 2 is for 6 and up. So she is moving into level 2. So level 2 is introducing skills like adding and subtracting, reading timelines and estimating and things, and even fractions. So she just moved into that because some of them can be a little bit more difficult to understand conceptually. But she's doing really well. So that's it, you guys. That is my update. Thank you for sticking around. Please consider subscribing, and I will see you in the next video. Please leave your comments down below if you have any questions. I'd love to chat with you in the comments. Bye.